You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. Podcast? The podcast. Or should I say the Mitchell Marsh Show? I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe-Brown. How are you doing, Max? Are you excited to be on the podcast or the Mitchell Marsh Show, depending on, I suppose, your frame of mind?
I am. I'm very good, very happy. It's just been more of the same in the sense that it's a crazy series, and I'm just glad that we get to experience it, man.
Do you know what? I think this may be the craziest day yet. We've had 10. This is the 11th day. There have been some crazy days, not least the day that came before today. But if you told me at the beginning of the day, the beginning of the Threads era, Max, that Mitchell Marsh would be the best player in the world of the Threads era so far, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't even have believed he was going to play. That happened. And then
that's your mistake.
And then Mark Wood bowls like absolute gas, like the level above gas. You've got sharp about 88 miles an hour, fast, say 90, gas 92, and then somewhere above that, about 3 to 5 miles an hour above gas, is Mark Wood doing his own thing, and causing carnage. Like genuinely one of the most out of the blue Black Swan event days. That's what I think it was, a Black Swan event. You're aware of what a Black Swan event was. We'll get to all of that. There's plenty to talk about. We've also got some women's ashes. We've also got to say congratulations to the Netherlands for qualifying for the Cricket World Cup. Obviously, that was on during the day, so we followed along. We didn't watch too much of that, but big thumbs up to them. And there's a bunch more of in-play action that we will be discussing. Max, let's dive right into it. We've got 2 ads. We'll mention them at the top. Series Cricket, TCP, get 10% off there, and Manscaped. We'll do them in more detail later. Let's get straight to the cricket. What happened in the day, the crazy day? Talk to me.
The crazy day. Well, first things first was what was the atmosphere going to be like? How was everyone going to behave? Or is everyone going to hate each other? Turned out there was a little bit of needle from the crowd and a little bit of kidology from England, but nothing untoward. So that's good. We can all forget about that now, and we can start back talking about the cricket. And the cricket, well, that was fun, wasn't it? First off, England won the toss again, 3 out of 3. You'd like to think that would be well, so far it's not been a harbinger of good news at all, but it was another opportunity for England to stick Australia in. Looked good early on, early wicket. Then a bit of consolidation. Then Mark Wood came on for Mark Wood Part 1, where, as you said, he bowled. I mean, he was just firing hypersonic missiles down, like 96.5 mile an hour. I was questioning whether the speed gun was broken. Then I looked at it again. I was like, nah, that's fast. They're just getting out the way at this point. Unfortunately, just the 1 wicket he managed to get in his opening salvo, along with the 3 maidens, and England made some inroads. But cometh the marsh, cometh the hour. I don't know whether we are a little. I don't know. Are we harsh on Marsh? Do we do him a disservice, or does he literally just only turn up against England in random scenarios? Who's to say? But he crashed a runner ball 118, and Australia looked pretty well set at tea. They just lost him before tea, and it was what 244 for 5, was it? Then Mark Wood came back for Mark Wood Part 2 and bowled too fast for everyone and bowled them all. And before you knew it, they were 263 all out. I went into a meeting with Australia at 244 for 5. I came out of it, and they were all out. That was good. I enjoyed that. It's just carnage, and that isn't even covering the fact that in all of that, England dropped him on 12. They dropped Head when he got 39. They dropped. I mean, I'll say dropped Steve Smith. That one was the hardest of the 3. But nonetheless, drop Carey, but then immediately, it was, I don't know, do England just have to, is it a sacrifice? Is it a sacrificial drop to the gods in order to get a wicket? Is that what's going on? Because so far, that's what I'm seeing from the evidence in front of me. And maybe they thought, well, if we drop Travis Head now, we'll get Steve Smith out, and that's the more important wicket. Maybe they thought the same thing with Mitch Marsh, and they miscalculated. I don't know, but it was a crazy day, and at the end, I forgot the bit where England batted.
Yeah,
So they're 68. They're 68 for 3. It was looking really good. Then Zach Crawley did what he's done every game this series, which is a step up from what Zach Crawley's done every other game in his Test career, because he actually got a start before nicking off. But
it's very evenly
it's in the
poised.
balance. Yeah,
I mean, they could have. I think if you were going to design a day, it's like, let's say that they're probably not. Australia is probably a little bit better than England, but let's say they were absolutely even at the beginning of the day. Both teams had a 45% chance of winning and a 10% chance of drawing. If you wanted to pick a score or a match situation where at the end of day one nothing had changed, I think
except maybe the draw.
Second. Yeah, no, I think the draw's still in it because it's going to rain.
Because of the weather, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon the team batting second, being about 200 behind with 7 wickets in hand, is virtually exactly where you would land. Like like nothing has changed, but if so much has happened. It's and
that is the beauty of cricket.
It really, really, really was just such a captivating day's cricket once again. You got to hand it to the two teams. You got to hand it to England for coming back from a brutal loss and playing the way they did. You got to hand it to Wood for dragging England back when it looked like Australia were on top, and then you have to hand it to Australia for, well, in the first instance, dragging it back when they were not on top, and then at the end of the day, taking the wickets,
dragging it back.
To drag it back. Like everyone's dragging shit all over the place. How are we supposed to keep?
There's marks all over the floor.
It's mayhem. On the sacrifice, I've got a theory on this as well.
Yeah.
If that's what you think's happening, so England are dropping the ball to appease the cricket gods, so that maybe the cricket gods come down, look favourably upon them, and either through luck or through skill, the bequeathal of skill, reward them. I think that the cricket gods did come down, and possessed Mitchell Marsh. I can't.
So what did he sacrifice last night?
I think the cricket gods got it wrong. They didn't realise. Maybe the cricket gods had a big Wednesday, wet Wednesday. That's what they say now, isn't it? It's the big one with work. Cricket gods had some shandies last night pre-test. Got confused about who was offering the sacrifice and came down to possess Mitch Marsh. He's the story of the day, isn't he? I mean, like, not only does he score the 100, he also goes on. He comes back on and takes a ton of wickets. Well, a ton of wickets. He takes
one wicket.
It's pretty incredible. Do you want to? I mean, like, let's have some Marsh loving. Son of Jeff, brother of Sean, which I think are known facts about Sean Marsh. From Western Australia. Nicknamed Bison. I've never really understood this, but I thought, in the interest of putting on a good show, I should do some research into Marsh. Nicknamed Bison because one day Jason Gillespie was feeling his head and thought it was quite heavy, and
what
said,
bisons have a heavy head.
Bisons have a heavy head, and that's what's that's where his nickname has come from. Let's talk about the innings. Well, let's know a little bit more about him, because I think this is a kind of a magical story as well, and I quite like it when this happens. Mitch Marsh, really, if you were going to judge him now based on the body of work he has put together across more than a decade in international cricket, you would say probably shouldn't be getting that near this Australia team.
Bang average is what you'd say, looking at the stats.
Yeah, like, he's a guy in Test cricket who, prior to this innings, averaged 25 with the bat and 38 with the ball. Like, he's a Mark Elam, a bits and pieces player, someone who doesn't really contribute positively on either side of the ball, you would say. He's had his moments, and don't get me wrong, he's had some great innings in T20 cricket. He had a little purple patch earlier this year in ODIs, obviously won the T20 World Cup, and has tormented England. Like, that should be borne in mind when you ask, like, why was he selected? He if you were going to pick him against the team in Test cricket, you would probably, in fairness,
you'd choose England.
Pick, yeah.
Well, I mean, what did he do in his last Test match?
Well,
Took
yeah,
a
I mean, you know
fiver
what I
at the
mean?
Oval.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also the guy though, Max, who described himself as the most hated man in Australia. This is not a career for a guy who debuted at 19 in the Aussie team, first played in Test matches in 2014. This is not the career that Mitch Marsh should have had, and injuries have played a role. Maybe the family name has played a role in hyping him up. There's a few factors. Maybe his technique just doesn't travel that way. But like this is a black swan event, as I said earlier in the show. This is kind of nuts that the guy with this body of work has come out at 80 for 4 on a pitch where the ball is doing bits against an attack that are up for it, and has walked off with 118 runs. Not only that,
And
he's
not
got
just
118
runs. Like
he's done
118
it.
runs, he smashed it around.
In 118 balls, exactly. And at the other end, Max, I've got the numbers here. 145 from 244 is the number of runs and the number of balls the rest of the team have scored, including 23 extras. He basically scored half the runs off the bat in half the balls of the rest of his team. You've really got to admire, I think, the comeback. And you have to applaud him. And I don't know if you saw the video of his dad and his brother in Bali watching it. Obviously drunk quite a few beers. It's probably quite late at night there. Absolutely going nuts when he takes the quick single, which probably should have been a run out to get to his 100. And after all of this, Max, he stands here with the same number of Ashes centuries as Ian Botham, the same number as Ashes fifers as I think Pat Cummins. It's
one of only 3 Australians ever to take a fifer and score 100 in the Ashes.
Yeah. Also, I think the second quickest 100 ever by an Australian in England. Like there's more than a century of Ashes cricket. There are some great players, some great attacking players that have played against some bad England teams across the years, and he's number 2 on that list. Like it's a monumental innings from a guy who has seized his chance. And I think whether you want Australia to win or you want England to win, you have to admire the personal story there and the personal fortune from Mitch Marsh, and obviously he's loved around the Australia side as well. And I want to give him his moment in the sun. I'm happy for him. I'm not a Mitch Marsh buyer. Like if someone said, is Mitch Marsh a good player? Even now, after what I just watched, I would say no, Mitch Marsh is not a good player. But I loved what he did out there. I loved the swagger he had. I loved the way he batted, how he took on England, how he didn't panic after he got to 50, how he made it look so easy, how he was dominant, how he swaggered about, and how he got out at just the right time to keep the game interesting. He didn't press on and get 350.
He's single-handedly saving Test cricket, Jack.
Yeah, like that was. I mean, no. The Baseball Man of the Match award has to go, or that Man of the Day award has to go to Mitch Marsh for that. It was, it was just phenomenal stuff. He takes Australia from major danger through troubled waters, all the way up to a really decent Test score. So I want to get that out there first before we talk about anything else.
Before we talk about how different it could all have been had Joe Root not rubbed his hands with oil. For him personally.
How England could have bowled better, maybe. Mitch Marsh, Man of the Day. Fantastic. The wicket, I'm not really going to talk about the wicket. He got Zach Crawley out. That's less impressive.
Yeah.
But as days go in Test cricket, blasting 118, basically half your team's runs, 118 balls, pick up a wicket. I hope they've got a case of beers in the dressing room, and he's having a libation now. I'm sure he isn't. He's a professional, but if I were him, I would be. So I'm going to raise a glass or my can to Mitch Marsh, because I needed a beer after that day's cricket. I needed something to calm the nerves. Well played, Mitch Marsh from the Cricket Podcast. There you go. What do you want to talk about next?
Heartfelt.
I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about how different England's attack looks with Mark Wood in it, and how much maybe they missed it in the last Test?
That's a great place to start. We've done the Australia change. Todd Murphy also comes in. We'll see how that goes. That's for Lyon. Green's out injured. Enforced selections.
Boland in for Hazelwood as well, but I think that's that's a rotation and makes sense.
Rest and rotation. Yeah. Tour of duty for Boland. England, they didn't have to make any changes. but they have. But they didn't. Maybe they had to make one. I can't
They had
remember.
to make one. They had to get rid of Pope.
Talk to me, Max. What's England's team like? Do you like it?
So, I mean, obviously Pope being out is the big issue, and Dan Lawrence was the man in the squad as the backup batter. They've decided that they won't go with that. So we've got Moeen back, finger healed. Chris Wokes finally gets a chance, and then Mark Wood's in belatedly. I think he would have played in the last test, wouldn't he? But he wasn't quite ready. They were just winding up the last few rotations on his little motor to get him going. They hadn't quite got it ready for Lords. Another few days of spinning is what's managed to get him up to 95 miles an hour, I reckon. Those little toys that you wind up, they just run across the table. That's how I envisage Mark Wood's physio prep. I didn't hate it, to be honest, especially with the news that Ben Stokes probably wasn't going to bowl. So you got to find another bowler there. I guess, having Wokes and Ali and Wood and Broad and Robinson, you've got I guess 5 number 9s, which on average makes it a long but very good tail. It's like a really thick tail, but it's a really long, thick tail.
Like a skunk
like a brontosaurus. I don't know. Yeah, a skunk.
No, that's
or a
long
fox's
and thin.
brush. Well, it starts thick and then gets not the dinosaur. Skunk's good. We'll go with the skunk. The skunk's
Maybe an
tail, I think, was better.
ankylosaurus. It's quite long, but it's
Yeah.
heavyweight. It could do some damage.
Yeah. Anyway,
A little bit
we're
of
exhausting.
paleontology
We're
there.
exhausting the metaphor, but yeah, obviously that meant Harry Brook moving up to 3. It didn't go well. Obviously, he has a small body of evidence at 3, but quite early in his career, and it's not very successful. But England don't bother with that sort of thing. I mean, they're a side that operate on pure vibes, and they thought maybe we can chuck up Harry Brook and he'll go out and smack the ball around a bit. But he was batting in reasonably tricky circumstances. It was the lights were starting to come on. It's a pitch with a bit in it. Good bounce and carry, and like you said to me earlier, Pat Cummins on this pitch is it's tailor made for him. So he struggled a bit, and he ended up nicking to slips, and it didn't go so well for him. So maybe Joe Root at 3 would have been the right call. He basically ended up batting 3 anyway after the 2 early wickets, so it didn't make a huge amount of difference. But we know he doesn't like it, and we know he likes batting at 4. So if he ends up going on and getting a decent score out of it, then who am I to say otherwise? But yeah, it's interesting that they went this way. But I'm kind of okay with it. Obviously, Robinson had his back spasms, so that's a slight downer on the bowling attack. But hopefully he can come back. But it was just what was interesting was because obviously Josh Tong was the man who came in as the enforcer role in the last test, and he was touching 88, 89 top speeds, and the slowest ball Mark Wood bowled today was 88.5 miles an hour. The slowest ball. It's just not even comparable. Josh Tong bowled really nicely at Lords, but it wasn't as an enforcer. It was when he got it up and it nipped back down the slope, or he got a bit of swing. A bit more like a Pat Cummins, I suppose, doing something with the ball at high 80s, which is why this Australia attack's been just that little bit more dangerous than the England one. So having Mark Wood in there, you could see the change in the Aussie batters and the way they face it. It was genuinely quick, and they genuinely found it quick. So it was just that point of difference again. It lifts all the other bowlers. They can bowl at 80 miles an hour, but suddenly it's a change, and you have to get used to the change. Whereas when everyone's bowling at 82, you just sort of get a bit comfortable, don't you? So that was massive for England, and also I think England's they use their bowlers really well. Like Mark Wood coming in 3-4 over spells to just literally bowl as fast as you can, and then have a rest for a bit. That's great. That's what we should have been doing. That's what we should have done with Jofra Archer, and now he's broken. Never mind. At least we have learned from those mistakes. There was a little bit of a complaint, wasn't there, that Wood didn't come on while Marsh was in the middle of smacking the ball all over the place. But, he came back and skilled through the rest. So I'm not going to complain about that. I think that plan worked well enough. But, yeah, it's it is a real shame for England that he wasn't ready before. I think it might have made a difference. But I mean, boy, is it fun when a guy's bowling that quick.
I agree. I think if he plays at Edgbaston, there's no way Australia get 54 with the last 2 wickets.
No,
just
no chance.
I mean, Pat Cummins. There's a picture someone put. We retweeted it actually. There's a picture of him trying to play the ball he was out to, and his bat isn't close to being down. He hasn't missed the ball, the line of the ball. The ball is like half a second too quick for him. It's like that. I think England mainly got the selection right. I think they did it with Stokes being injured in mind, and I think they basically said as much that they needed to pick a team for a situation where Stokes didn't bowl. I think Moeen is not a good 7.
I
problem.
think England
but then
probably
Wokes
view
is a
him
very
as
good
better a 7 than he is.
Yeah, but I think Wokes is a good 8, so maybe that balances out.
Yeah.
I don't like Brook at 3. I think that's silly. I
mean, everything he's done,
especially on this pitch,
everything he's done for England has been at 5 and 6, and he's been brilliant. So it does seem a bit odd to just take him out of there and move him up.
Yeah,
but
maybe they'll switch it around. I think there was probably an argument for Folkes in and everyone goes up 1. But they obviously decided not to do that, and there are reasons for that as well. Max, so I think what we've covered man of the day, we've covered the selection. The only other thing on the selection, Robinson. It's England picked Robinson, and some people have been saying, oh well, if there's a guy with a fitness issue, why have they picked him? England have picked him because they have to win this Test match, and he's probably their best or second best bowler. I don't think they'd have played him in this match were it 1-1, or were they winning, or were they 1-0 down even. I think because it's do or die, they've kind of had to.
Yes, I agree.
So there is that. But as I was saying, let's wrap up part 1 now. We'll take a 5-second break and come back with some more bits. Before we go, I'll just blast out Serious Cricket again. Serious Cricket, use the code TCP23 for 10% off all of your cricket equipment. That code is on the screen if you're on YouTube. You can find the link in the show notes, as well as links to our social media at The Cricket Pod and Patreon, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod to support the show directly, which is something that you should definitely do. We will be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast for part 2 of our show. The day finished with England 200 behind and the game delicately balanced. Max, you were talking to me earlier on the WhatsApp chat, the pod WhatsApp, and you were raging at England's drops. I'm sure there are a lot of England fans out there similarly raging. Do you think that England have dropped the Ashes in this match?
They've not quite dropped the Ashes, but they have dropped a very, very, very good opportunity to get back into it in a big way. Now, if you said at the start of the day, England are going to win the toss, bowl first, and bowl Australia out for 263, you're going to go, yeah, decent job, I'll take that. So maybe it's being a little too greedy. Maybe I want too much. But England needs to win this game, and they need to do that by taking 20 wickets. And it's really annoying when to take 10 wickets, you have to take 14. Just stands to reason, doesn't it? Basic maths. It's not complicated, but it's a problem that England had before Bazball. Then they started catching everything. We were like, oh, that's great. The good vibes have meant that England have learned how to catch again. And then we've been reminded that actually England in the slip cordon do like to drop things. It's a frustrating because it could have been so much better. That's where I like the England bowled. Like they bowled pretty well. They bowled very well for the most part. And when you drop chances that are that easy, I don't mind if maybe you drop a couple of 50%ers and that's not beyond the realms of possible. But we're talking like dollies, proper dollies here. Like, do they not even practice catching? Like, what's going on? Explain it to me.
I presume they practice catching. I think. So I actually don't think the catches have as much impact on the match as some people, and I can explain that. I do, however, think that it is a big problem for England that they drop these catches, and I think particularly on this pitch. So this pitch, if you've actually not watched much of the play, we know some people tune in to catch up, or they listen on the radio and get a little bit more cricket action here. It's like an Australian wicket. Like the bounce is significant. It's really flying through, and a lot of people who were at the ground, a lot of the journalists were saying that they'd never seen the cordon as far back as they had for this game. You know, in Australia, the slips are a long way back.
Yeah, I heard it described to Mark Wood as short third man.
Well, yeah, no, it was, they were miles back. Like, and with that in mind, there's really not that much of an excuse for the drops. There's even less of an excuse. Sometimes in England, people hammer the England team and away sides for the drops at slip, where the slips are standing extremely close, much closer than they would in other countries, because the ball doesn't come through as high. It's low. It doesn't get above waist height. That isn't the case here. You were basically in the outfield if you were standing at first slip a lot of the day. And I think the two catches that Root dropped really on this pitch, they are bad. One of them does prove to be costly in terms of runs. The other one they get away with because I think the guy was out next ball.
Yeah.
I think a bigger problem though is Bairstow. We made the assumption, I think a lot of people made the assumption, that him standing back in England wouldn't be
fine.
That much of a disadvantage. Yeah, maybe over the series he drops a couple of catches that folks have taken. I think the evidence is telling us after 5 innings now that Bairstow is substantially worse at wicket keeping than when he last did it regularly for England, and that it is a problem, and that he is meaning that they need to take an extra wicket every innings. I think England have missed 15 chances. Now, there'll be a range of difficulties for those chances, but the ones they missed today, they're counting those 15. They were all easy. And off the top of my head, I can think of at least 2 easy Bairstow ones from Edgbaston. Maybe there was a third easy one from Edgbaston as well. And they're really, kicking water uphill in a match where you're playing against a team that is a bit better than you, but you are doing things that are innovative and are forcing them into mistakes, which England are. You can't really afford, I think, to have to, as you say, take 12, 13 wickets. And that is what England have designed into their game, with Bairstow playing the way he is, and that's it has to be called out.
They've taken a gamble, haven't they? That the runs that Bairstow is going to score over someone like Folkes will increase their chance of winning the game in both the volume of runs and the pace at which he scores them. I think that's probably an important distinction to make. It's not just an average difference between what Bairstow might give you and what Folkes might give you. It's also the fact that he's going to do it in a manner that may give you the opportunity to win a game when in another situation it might end up in a draw. But yeah, like you say, I mean, they're not all the hardest catches in the world. I mean, if you're looking at pre-leg Bairstow at his sort of normal level, he's a serviceable wicketkeeper, and standing back, he probably takes some of those. But particularly when you look at the ones down the leg side, which are the two, they're the two that you dropped today. One off Smith, that was a tricky catch. Make no mistake about it. I mean, that's a tough chance. But then the one a bit later on off Chara's head, which was a lot easier. It just looks so laboured. He looks so laboured down the leg side. And that is part of the fact probably that he's still working his way back from this. It was a horrible leg injury. He's probably still a bit stiff. And the fact that he's barely done it that much since coming back. He's going to be rusty. And that is the point. We didn't really do it
before he came back. It's quite a long time since Bairstow's been a regular wicketkeeper in international cricket.
He did it
in any format
for Yorkshire, and he did it a bit in the T20. And there were some clips of him in the T20, and man, it looked bad. It looked really bad. He got better, but I mean, there are a bunch of other technical things that I could go into about Bairstow, but that's not, I don't think, the issue here. I think the issue is it's a physical one, I think. England have got to think about it, because they got away with it to an extent. I mean, they've lost the first 2 games, so maybe you could say they didn't get away with it. But I think, in terms of, you look at the
Well,
runs.
they lost the Edgbaston test because of it, I think.
Well, the runs maybe, but the runs they gave away individually from drops in the last 2 tests, they haven't been huge. It's been like maybe 20 or 30
No,
here or
I
there,
think
but this is the first
Edgbaston
time
test.
they've dropped someone and he's gone and got a ton.
I feel like they dropped someone who got a ton at Edgbaston, or missed the start. So it was a while ago. Didn't Bearso miss a feathered catch? Well, maybe Carey got 50 and Cam Green got 40 in the first innings at Lords when Australia were 100 or 155.
Stumping off Green, wasn't it? And
they're what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were. I'm afraid to say it, very easy catches. And today to talk about them, because the way it will stick out and it'll definitely do the rounds. Like Joe Root drops the catch and then Mitchell Marsh scores 100, and that always looks bad, especially when you drop the guy on 12 and he makes another 106 runs. I do think that there's a little bit more to this story, though. I think Australia probably end up around there anyway, because in the afternoon, the ball stopped swinging. It was pretty flat. England had some pretty dumb tactics, and I think they'd have employed those dumb tactics anyway. And Australia found it a little bit easier to score. When things changed was after tea, when basically I think Wood kind of got the ball to start reversing, and that combined with him bowling really, really fast was the difference. If you want to, I think England's bowling in general in the afternoon was pretty suspect, but I think it probably would have been pretty suspect regardless. They were kind of doing the short ball thing and
maybe. I mean,
all of that.
Also, if you take out, Mitch Marsh scored 100, he scored them quickly as well. So the person who
work like that.
Well, it does. I know it doesn't work like that, but those runs have to come from somewhere, and they don't necessarily come as quickly. And maybe the tail doesn't get blasted out, but also maybe whoever comes in scores at half the rate of Mitchell Marsh, and then the ball starts reversing again, and the tail do get blasted out and ended up.
But then maybe it's not Mitchell. Maybe it's not Mitchell.
It's all like we don't know. It's all hypotheticals. But the fact is, England did lose a chance to get a guy out for 12 when he got 118. Absolutely, there's every chance that Australia would have gone on and got 250 odd, but also those runs did have to come from somewhere, and you can't deny that there's a chance. It's a big bit of
the thing that people do in cricket though is they go, 118 minus 112, that's 6, and then everything after that would have happened the same. And I'm saying
that's obviously not the case.
When England took 5 for 20 after tea, that almost certainly doesn't happen in the afternoon, and probably Australia bat through most of that, score 100 runs for 1, and and then Wood probably doesn't bowl that well after tea. There's a whole sequence of events that we don't know anything about. When teams are 100 for 4 or 110 for 5 at lunch on a pretty easy wicket when the sun's out in the afternoon and the outfield is lightning, they've still got a decent chance, and mostly are going to get at least another 100 runs. It is, especially on day one. That's 40
less could be big.
It could be 40 less. What they definitely missed out on was the chance that they did bowl Australia out for 110, not 100, 150. Like that. Once you drop that catch, then it becomes very difficult for that to happen. Whereas maybe there is a world where they roll Australia for nothing. I think they just ran into Mitch Marsh on with God. Like I said, the sacrifice went wrong. And they did. I had some numbers from the afternoon in terms of where they bowled to Marsh specifically, and I do think England got their plans wrong. Good length, they tried that 37 times max. He scored 9 runs. Full length, they tried that 21 times. He scored 37 runs. Short length, they tried that 24 times. He scored another 33. So I think there are other criticisms of England, tactically speaking, in the afternoon, where they maybe after an exciting morning got a little bit ahead of themselves and were like, let's just wrap this up immediately. When if they just held their line, I think that against a player like Marsh, specifically Marsh here, I think they probably got him out relatively easily.
And the wicket, of course, came from a ball in exactly that area of the pitch.
Exactly. And it wasn't the first one that he looked like he'd had a little bit of trouble with.
Yes. Was he the one they reviewed where it just came off his thigh? Was that Mitch Marsh?
Maybe. It could have been Trevishead.
Anyway, not an important point. But
I had a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, Max. Labuschagne doesn't look very good, and I think he's changed his technique 3 tests in a row. We'll see what happens in the second innings because that could be a bigger talking point. But Barrett Sundaresan has been tweeting along basically with Labuschagne's changes. Yeah, and none of them have worked, and he looks like a player who's, searching for his game quite significantly. Certainly not a beast. Another thing, Headingley, generally speaking, flattens out. So if England can get to parity, I think they're still well ahead in this match. Normally, day 1 is hard. Day 2 can be quite tricky, and then 3 and 4 and 5, are often very, very flat pitches where a lot of runs can be scored. So tomorrow morning is going to be, important. Or tomorrow in general is going to be important.
Get through tomorrow.
Important. Yeah. And I went to the Women's Ashes at the Oval yesterday. I used our Sports Social Podcast Network press connections to get the media pass through, and watched England do well. I don't know if you caught any of this, Max.
Yeah, I did. It looked like it was going really badly. Then it went really well. Then it looked like it was going really badly. Then it went really well again. England
basically
did the
that was it.
This time.
Yeah. Danny Wyatt went ballistic, 76 for her, and England posted 180 odd, which looked like a really good score at half time, and then it looked like not a good score for a while when Healy went ballistic. Then it looked like a really good score when Ecclestone and Charlie Dean picked up some wickets, and then it looked like a bad score again when
at least Perry looked like she was going to take it down.
Georgia Wareham, at least. Eventually they held their own. There was a record crowd there, over 20,000 people. Good atmosphere.
Yeah,
really
looked great.
Really good game of cricket. Yeah, I mean, like it's. I hadn't seen the Australia team live before, and I actually hadn't seen the England team live before as well. And I would say, like, the quality of international cricket in the women's game is really, really good. Which sounds dumb to say it, but if you haven't seen it live, sometimes you don't necessarily realise the skill level. And obviously, if you're in the press area, you get a really good view of what the bowlers are doing. And yeah, a probably deserved win for England. What I would say is that it's one of those ominous deserved wins where you can see that so much had to go right for England to win. There were like edges dropped.
Well, they almost won the first one, didn't they? And that was really close in the end.
Yeah.
And you just saw again when that thing doesn't quite go right, it ends up getting away from you.
But it's the first Ashes win of the summer for England. I think it's the first Ashes win. So the first time England have beaten Australia in any Ashes cricket since pre-pandemic. So
it's the turning point. It's the turning point.
Turning point. Yeah, it's
do it.
A
double Ashes, easy.
Max, I think we're mainly done. We've got one question from Twitter. The only talking point I can think about that we haven't missed, and that I've got noted down, was Robinson. Yeah. Back spasms. I've had back spasms. Sometimes they go away. Sometimes they
so have
don't.
I actually. Yeah. I had back spasms 15 minutes up to climbing Ben Nevis.
Oh really?
I was doing the 3 peaks challenge. You got the 3 highest peaks in the UK, and 15 minutes in at like 4:30 in the morning, I had back spasms. And I just told the rest of them to go on without me, and I'd go up as far as I could and meet them on the way back down.
Like fucking Captain Oates.
One path up, one path down. Leave me behind. Don't save yourselves. Ended up bumping into a random bloke called Jez, and he was like, "Don't worry, mate. We'll get you up there." After about half an hour to an hour, it loosened up, and I actually caught them up the top. So that was quite good fun. So moral of the story is he's going to be fine. He's going to be back, and he'll do the business. Maybe, hopefully.
Thank you, Dr. Ganguly. The question we had was from Chak on Twitter. Hi, guys. Why do Ireland and some countries not participate in the World Test Championship despite being full ICC members? What do you actually get for being a full ICC member, and how do you become one? On a side note, love the podcast. Well, this is it's a good tangent to end the show on. Obviously, there was a massive non-major nation game today between Scotland and Netherlands. The winner went to the World Cup. Scotland posted 277. In fact, it was a bit more nuanced than that, because Scotland had a leeway. They could lose by a margin and still make it. Netherlands needed to get 278 to win in 44 overs, and they did, thanks to Big Baz, the leader, who picked up a fifer and a ton. So Awesome stuff. Him gutting for Scotland, who have been on a real journey. Absolutely fucking ridiculous that Scotland aren't going to be at the World Cup. Zimbabwe aren't going to be at the World Cup. The West Indies, who have won, I think 20% of World Cups, aren't going to be at the World Cup.
Yeah, but the West Indies were really bad.
Like, they
don't deserve to be at the World Cup. They don't deserve to be there. But Netherlands and Scotland and Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka all do, I would say.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think the story of the West Indies is as much about those 4 nations, or at least 3 of those nations, getting better than it is about West Indies getting worse. They've been about the same, West Indies, for a while. It's just that now there are some really good teams slightly lower down the pecking order. Yeah. Anyway, the questions were about what you get, how do you become an ICC member? I think it's just an elected thing. I think all the current big members say, yes, we'll make you a member. So maybe they'll extend the
and then you get to play some Test cricket
to the Netherlands. Yeah. And that's it, basically. You can play Test cricket. It's not that's it. You don't get entry into the World Test Championship. You just get the privilege of being allowed to play 1 test a year or something. How you get into the World Test Championship, I think, is a lot more nebulous. I think that's a bit more of a cabal. They should. I mean, like, it's so dumb that they haven't. Yeah. Make all of the teams we talked about there Test nations, have 2 divisions of Test cricket, and try and make it slightly more relevant.
I mean, that would be the ideal, wouldn't it? But there are logistical issues with that, and having to it's expensive to have Test cricket and all of that. But I mean that would be nice. But yeah, thanks for the question. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Glad you're enjoying the show.
We do have to cover off the one final sponsor, though, don't we, Jack?
Of course we do. Yes.
After a short break and some really intense and hard-fought negotiations, I'm delighted to say that we've partnered back again with our friends at Manscaped, who are offering you 20% off with the code CricketPod, as you can see below me. And I don't know if you heard, Jack. I was told the other day that it was actually the hottest June on record. It didn't feel like it.
Yeah, I did.
But yeah, hottest June on record. And what better time then for Manscaped to unleash smooth sack summer?
Exactly. You don't want a hairy sack for the hottest June ever.
Exactly. Beat the heat. Get yourself the performance package. Smooth yourself down and have nice, refreshing testicles for the hot summer. It's how you combat global warming and all the rest of it. And you can get the performance package with 20% off with the code CricketPod. It's got all the good stuff in there. The Lawnmower 4.0 with ceramic blades. And the like. Lovely ball deodorant, very good stuff, and free underwear and travel bag to go along with it. Get involved.
I like the bag. It's all good. It's all good stuff.
Bag. It's good underwear.
Comes with the seal of approval from the Cricket Podcast. A final reminder: we're at the Cricket Pod on socials. If you're still listening, do hit like, do hit subscribe. Obviously, you are. Otherwise, how would you?
Otherwise, you'd have missed the bit about Manscaped. That's what you all
do. Hit like, do hit subscribe. Tell your friends if you're watching on YouTube. Click like, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe and check out all the other stuff in the show notes. There's merch, coffee, Facebook page,
great stuff.
Facebook page. Keep the Facebook page going. Oh my goodness, endless fun, endless fun. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye. We will be back tomorrow with a recap of day 2, and probably England's miserable slip towards defeat. Bye-bye.